Hello and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to day 3 of our 12 days of Christmas patterns. We're so excited to have you here. Today we're doing a really exciting pattern. It's going to be our Santa donut. This is really fun and one of my favorites, and I can't wait to share it with you. So let's gather our supplies and we can get started. So for our supplies for this project, I'm going to be using this red yarn. Doesn't have a tag on it anymore, but it is a baby snuggle yarn in the color red. And then I'm going to be using the honey bunny yarn in black for the belt, and then the yellow in baby snuggle is called sunshine, and I'm going to be using this color for the belt buckle. We're also going to need some fur yarn for the buttons. This is just loops and threads fur. I'm going to be using my 5.5mm crochet hook from Crochet Society. We'll need a pair of scissors, a darning needle, a stitch marker, some fabric pins, some ribbon for hanging it on the tree. Can be any color or size. This is just regular white ribbon. And we'll also need some fiber fill. So once we have gathered all of our supplies, we can get started. All right, so to begin this project, we are going to start on the donut portion, and we're going to start with our color A yarn. So for me, that's the red, and if you're not using red, whatever you decided to use for your color A yarn. Now to begin, we are going to create a slip knot, and we're going to just place that on our hook here. Now to begin round 1, we are going to place 16 chains. So our chain is a yarn over and pull through, that's 1. Yarn over, pull through, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So just like this. Next, what we're going to do is we want to make a circle. So we're going to join our 16th chain that we just made to our very first chain at the very beginning. You want to just make sure that you're keeping it straight. Just like that. And you're going to make a slip stitch. Just like that. So now you should have a circle. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to place my stitch marker. So I personally like to use a scrap strand of yarn, but you can use your regular stitch marker, whatever you use. And we're going to place 16 single crochets around. So working into the top loop of each chain, we're going to place 16 single crochets. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. There we have our beginning circle and round 2 complete. Moving on to round 3, we're going to do the combination single crochet 1 and an increase stitch. So single crochet in the first and an increase in the second. So 2 stitches in 1, single crochet, increase. So 2 stitches in 1. We'll repeat this 8 times for a total stitch count of 24 at the end of round 3. Here we go. Now moving on to round 4, we're going to do the combination single crochet 2 and an increase. 1, 2, and increase. So 2 stitches in 1. 1, 2, increase. Now we're going to repeat this 8 times as well for a stitch count of 32 at the end of this round. I will finish this round off camera and I will meet you back here for round 5. Alright, and that is round 4 complete. Now moving on to round 5, we'll do the combination single crochet 3 and an increase stitch. So 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3, and increase. And we'll repeat this 8 times as well for a stitch count of 40 at the end of this round. Increase. I will finish this off camera and I'll meet you back here at the end of round 5. Alright, now for round 6, we're going to do the combination single crochet 4 and increase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase. We'll repeat this 8 times for a stitch count of 48 at the end. So I will complete round 6 off camera and I'll meet you back here for round 7. Alright, now that is up to round 6 completed. Now moving on for rounds 7 to 11, so 5 rows, we are going to do single crochet 48. So 1 single crochet in each stitch around for rows 7 till 11. So I'm going to complete these rounds off camera and I will meet you back here at the end of round 11 and we'll move on to round 12. Alright, this is what we're looking like with rows 1 through 11 completed. Now moving on to round 12, we're going to start decreasing. So for decrease round 1, we're going to do a combination of single crochet 4 and a decrease. Now I like to do an invisible decrease for my amigurumi because I find it makes smaller holes. So single crochet 4, and then to do our decrease, we're going to grab the front loop of this first stitch and the front loop of the back stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's a decrease. Now we'll repeat this 8 times. We should have a stitch count of 40 at the end of this round. So I will complete this off camera and I'll meet you back here for round 13. Alright, moving on to round 13, we're going to do the combination single crochet 3 and a decrease. So 1, 2, 3, and a decrease. And we'll repeat that again. 1, 2, 3, and a decrease. So repeat this 8 times. You should have a stitch count of 32 at the end. So I will meet you back here at the end of round 13. Alright, now moving on to round 14, we're going to do the combination single crochet 2 and a decrease. So 1, 2, decrease, 1, 2, decrease, and again we're going to repeat this 8 times for a final stitch count of 24 at the end of this round. So I will finish this round off camera and I'll meet you back here for round 15. Alright, now moving on to our final round and round 15, we'll do the combination single crochet and decrease. single crochet and a decrease, single crochet and a decrease, and we're going to repeat this again 8 times, and at the end of round 15 we will have 16 stitches. There we go. And that is our donut complete. I know it doesn't look much like a donut right now, but just trust the process. So I just removed my stitch marker and I'm just going to place a slip stitch right next door into this next stitch. And I'm going to cut my yarn. I'm going to cut a decent size strand, maybe about 16 to 20 inches. Now I have a little knot here, so I'm going to try and get that out before I pull this through. There we go. All right, so we'll just pull that through. And there's our donut shell. All right, so once we were at this point where we have this kind of cone shape thing, what we want to do is we want to just squish it in half. And what our goal is we're going to sew together these 2 inner circles, and that's going to create our donut. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a darning needle here and we're going to attach it to our yarn tail. And I'm just going to try and line up. You can see here's my original yarn tail from my slip knot. I'm going to just try and match up as best I can my 2 stitches. So I'm going to go through the stitch on the top and the stitch on the bottom. And I'm going to do the same thing all the way around. And you should have 16 total. So there's 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now once I'm at 8, that's about halfway through, I like to start to stuff because as this gets more closed, it's going to be more difficult to stuff. So I'm just going to take my fiber fill and I'm just going to stuff this little pocket on the inside here, just little by little. Just going to use my fingers to sweep that into the pocket that we've sewn together already, and on the other side as well. And then I just like to make sure that all the areas are full, and you don't want to overstuff or else you're going to have your stitches kind of splitting apart. And as for these yarn tails, I'm going to just keep the yarn tail inside so that we don't have to worry about that. And you're only stuffing the side that has been sewn together. So once you're happy with that, you can just continue along. And I'm going to do about 4 more stitches here, and then I'm going to stuff again and just continue along like that until we're done. Oopsie, sorry. So now I just have like this tiny little hole. So I'm going to finish my stuffing because that hole's getting a little too small now to continue on. So now we're going to completely stuff the entire donut, including the side here that's not quite sewn together. We're going to stuff that as well because soon this is going to be all closed off and we're not going to be able to get in here. Just like to make sure that my donut feels even. Not too hard, not too soft. And then I'm just going to sew together the last 4 stitches. So there's our donut all sewn together now. Now what I just like to do is I just like to make a little knot. Just gonna pull that through there. And then I'm just gonna weave my end in here. And cut my yarn. And there is the donut all complete and all stuffed. All right, so once we have the donut all completed, we're gonna move on to the belt. So I'm gonna use my color B yarn, and for me it's black. You can also use like a charcoal gray color, whatever you prefer. But for round 1, we're gonna start off with a slip knot. So I'm just gonna create my slip knot here. And using our 5.5mm crochet hook still, I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this probably is a little bit hard to see all because it's really a black color, but what we're going to do is we're going to skip this first chain closest to the hook, and in the remaining 3 chains we're going to place 1 single crochet. So 1, 2, and 3, just like that. Now that is row 2. Now to move on to row 3, what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1 and we're going to flip our work. Now we're going to go back and place 1 single crochet in each stitch across, so 3 single crochets. Chain 1 and turn. Now that is our first, second, and third row. Now we're going to repeat what we just did for 16 rows. So we're going to do 3 single crochets, chain 1, and turn for 16 rows. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and turn. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and turn. And you're going to complete this all the way to row 16. So just complete those rows and then we will meet back here when we're all done. All right, and that is rows 1 through 16 completed. Now, once we have our 16 rows completed, we're going to cut our yarn. You probably want about, I would say 20 inches just to be safe. I always like to cut a little long, rather have too much than not enough. Yarn over and pull all the way through to tie that off. Now we're going to need to make 2 of these, one for each side of our donut. So go back and re-watch this past few minutes for this pattern particularly, remake another one, and then we'll meet back here to sew them on. All right, so once you have made 2 of these, we will sew them on. So we'll just grab our donut. I'll just zoom you out a tad here so that we can see what we're doing. Now what we're going to do first is we're going to place these with fabric pins. I just like to always place my stuff with fabric pins first. And I personally think there's a good side and a bad side. So this side is our decreasing side of our donut, and this side is our increasing side. I personally think the increasing side looks a lot prettier. So this is going to be the front of my donut. So make sure that you know which side is which. And the belts are going to go right about here, and they're going to wrap around just like that. Now we want them to be around row 4 of the donut, and it may be a little bit difficult to find row 4, but just do your best. So I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3. So this is row 4 for me right here. So this is kind of where I want it to start. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can also go just like in the middle of row 4. The idea is we're going to create a belt buckle here, so we want some space to be able to do that. So I'm just going to take some fabric pins here, and I'm just going to roughly pin this down. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect right away. We can make adjustments. Just want to make sure that it's nice and straight. Go. And then we're going to do the same thing with the other side. So I'm just going to place that, and you want them to be even, right? Because this is going to be the belt. So you want to make sure it's pretty even. So that's kind of what we're looking like. I might move this one back a little bit. From there. So yeah, just go through and move it around until you're happy with where it is at before we sew it on. So just like that. Now once we're happy with that, we're just going to take our darning needle and we're going to attach this to the yarn end that we cut, the longer end. And we're just going to sew that on. And just remove the pins as you go here. So just go along and sew on both sides of your belt, and then we'll meet back here for the belt buckle. All right, so once we have our belt buckle attached, the belt portion, we're gonna work on the buckle now. So I'm just gonna take my color C yarn, so I'm just gonna use yellow for the buckle. You can use gold or silver if you'd like, or whatever you like to do. And what we're gonna do is we are going to create a slip knot again. Now you can do this with your same hook, or I kind of sometimes like to do it with a smaller hook just because we're going to be working directly into these stitches here. And I find sometimes it's easier to get into them with a smaller hook, just keeping in mind that I usually just do my stitches really loose when I'm using a smaller hook so that they're the same as they would be with the 5.5. So this is a 3.75 millimeter hook, but like I said, you can also use the regular 5.5 millimeter hook. So what we're going to do is we are going to place a slip stitch one stitch below where our belt buckle starts here. Now this doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to do mine right here. So here's where the belt buckle ends. I'm just doing one below, and I'm just going to place a slip stitch here, just like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now see how mine aren't touching there? So I'm actually going to redo that because I want them to be kind of touching the black yarn where the black belt is. So I'm actually just going to go right below, and I'm going to place my slip stitch here. And then I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to insert my hook 1 stitch above in the same spot. And I'm going to place a slip stitch there. So there's one arm of our belt. Now we're going to do the same thing. Now, depending on how you crochet and how loose you are with your tension, you may need to do more than 4, and that's totally fine. So I'm going to do 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm doing them pretty loose, but see, I'm not going to make it to the other side. So if you have to do 5, see how that is. If you have to do 6, and that's probably going to work for me, so I'm going to do 6, and then I'm going to place my slip stitch there, and then on the way down it should be the same. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. And then I'm just going to do one more, so we're going to do 6 across the top. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm just going to attach that at the same spot that my original one is, where I started off, just like that. Now I'm just going to cut this yarn here. And I'm going to yarn over and pull through. And then I'm just going to tie these 2 yarn strands together. Pull them a little bit tight so that there's nothing sticking out. Attach these to my darning needle. Takes a little bit more time, but should work just the same. just go directly down through to the back. And then just have to pull that through so it's not so tight. And then I'm just going to cut that. And then pull the yarn tails out. And there is our belt buckle completed. All right, moving forward, we are going to be starting on the buttons. I'm going to be using this fur yarn. It's honestly not the easiest yarn to work with, but the buttons are pretty easy to make, so hopefully you won't have too much difficulty. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a magic ring, like you would do any other magic ring. And then inside the magic ring, we are going to place 4 single crochets, making sure we're crocheting over both of those sides of the loop there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're just going to pull our magic ring shut. And then if you can find it, we're just going to make a slip stitch to the very first single crochet you made and just pull that through. And there is your button. So we'll just need 2 of these, and then once you've made both, we will come back and sew them on. All right, so I have made 2 buttons and I'm ready to sew them on. So I'm just going to take my donut here, and these buttons are just going to go directly above our buckle here, one here, and then one directly above it, kind of on top, just like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to attach my darning needle. Now the good thing about this yarn is it's quite forgiving. You can't really see much of anything with it, like where the stitches are, so it doesn't have to be perfect how you sew these on. Just gonna sew them on. I just want to make sure that they're centered. That's really all I care about. That's pretty good. Just gonna push that all the way to the back here. And I'm gonna push this yarn into the back as well. So there's one button, and then we'll do the second button. And then I'm just going to tie a couple knots back here just to secure those a little bit more on both of them. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and cut these ends. And then I'll just take my small crochet hook here and just weave in. Come. All right. we had some shedding happen, so I'm just going to clean up that extra yarn. You can really see the shedding on the black yarn. So there's our 2 buttons, just like that. And then last but not least, we're going to attach our ribbon. So just using the darning needle and put your ribbon on. And then we're just going to go right in the top, centered, right beside the top button there. And then I like to personally tie a bow with this ribbon. So I'm just going to tie a little thing here, and I'm going to tie a knot. And I might have made my ribbon a little too small for a bow, but we'll see. See if we can do it. There we go. And there is your completed Santa donut ornament. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Check back in tomorrow for day 4 of our 12 days of patterns, and we can't wait to see you. Hope you guys have a lovely day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.